The Zephyrian High Council had studied 17 different species before deciding on Earth. Their xenobiologists had run countless simulations, analyzed behavioral patterns, and calculated resource outputs. Humans, they concluded, would make excellent workers, intelligent enough to follow complex instructions, yet seemingly docile enough to manage. The species had spent most of their recorded history fighting among themselves over trivial matters like borders and resources. How difficult could they be to control? Commander Vexhai overlooked the processing facility from his elevated platform, watching as the newly captured humans shuffled through the intake procedures. The neural compliance chips were being installed with mechanical precision. Each human would receive a small device that would suppress aggressive impulses and ensure absolute obedience to Zephyrian commands. "The implantation process is proceeding smoothly," reported Sub-Commander Thess, her forearms manipulating multiple data tablets simultaneously. Initial resistance was minimal. These creatures seemed to accept their fate with remarkable resignation. Vexhai's tentacles curled in satisfaction. The humans had indeed surrendered their major cities within days of the initial bombardment. Their primitive weapons were laughably ineffective against Zephyrian energy shields. Most had simply laid down their arms when faced with overwhelming technological superiority. "Excellent. Begin work assignments immediately. The mining operations on Kepler 442b require 50,000 units. The agricultural stations need another 30,000. Distribute them accordingly." What the Zephyrians failed to understand was that humans possessed something their previous conquests had lacked: an evolutionary gift forged by millions of years as persistence hunters on a death world. They had survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and countless disasters that would have extinguished lesser species. Surrender wasn't capitulation. It was tactical repositioning. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her fingers against the neural implant, feeling the subtle vibration of its circuitry. Around her, thousands of humans worked in the massive asteroid mining facility, their movements seemingly automated and compliant. But Sarah noticed things the Zephyrians missed: micro-expressions, subtle hand signals, and the way information spread through the workforce like ripples in water. The implants suppressed overt aggression and rebellion, but they couldn't touch the deeper currents of human adaptability. Humans had always been problem solvers, and now they faced the ultimate problem. Marcus Webb, a former Marine who now operated heavy machinery, had discovered that intense physical exertion could create brief moments of clarity when the implant's effects weakened. During these windows lasting only seconds, his mind would race with possibilities. He began incorporating specific movement patterns into his work routine, patterns that spelled out messages in military hand signals to other former soldiers scattered throughout the facility. Elena Vasquez, an electrical engineer, noticed that the neural implants operated on a specific frequency. While she couldn't disable them directly, she realized she could create interference during certain periods when the facility's power grid fluctuated. She began systematically overloading circuits during her maintenance duties, creating predictable windows of reduced implant effectiveness. The Zephyrians, meanwhile, were pleased with their human workforce's efficiency. Production quotas were being met, and there had been no significant incidents of rebellion. Their security protocols focused on detecting large-scale organized resistance, not the subtle network of communication that was spreading through the human population like a virus. Dr. Chen discovered that the implants had an unexpected vulnerability. They were designed to suppress human aggression, but they relied on Zephyrian understanding of what constituted threatening behavior. The aliens had no concept of human creativity, humor, or the way humans could weaponize anything, including their own compliance. The breakthrough came when Chen realized that the implants interpreted certain emotional states as non-threatening. Love, grief, nostalgia, and artistic expression were filtered as harmless. But humans had always used these emotions as vehicles for something far more dangerous: hope and determination. Songs began spreading through the facility. Simple melodies that seemed like harmless expressions of homesickness. But embedded within the lyrics were coded instructions, technical specifications, and coordination signals. The Zephyrians, who communicated primarily through pheromone exchanges, couldn't decode the complex layers of meaning in human vocalizations. Stories were shared during rest periods, tales of human mythology and history that seemed like mere entertainment. But these narratives contained detailed plans, resource inventories, and strategic information. The story of the Trojan horse became a blueprint for infiltrating the command center. The legend of David and Goliath provided tactical doctrine for asymmetric warfare. 3 months after the initial invasion, the first phase of the human resistance began. It started with a power failure that seemed like routine equipment malfunction. During the 12 minutes of reduced implant function, thousands of humans across dozens of facilities simultaneously accessed critical systems, downloaded vital information, and planted carefully prepared sabotage programs. The Zephyrians discovered that their docile workforce had turned their own infrastructure against them. Humans had reprogrammed mining equipment into weapons, converted atmospheric processors into chemical warfare devices, and transformed communication arrays into massive electromagnetic pulse generators. But the true revelation came when Commander Vexahai found himself face-to-face with Dr. Chen in the facility's control room. Her neural implant had been surgically removed, and her eyes held something that made his exoskeleton tremble, the look of a predator that had been playing dead. "You studied 17 species," she said, her voice carrying the calm tone of someone who had already won. "But you missed the most important data point about humans. We're the species that survived when everything else on our planet died. We're the descendants of ancestors who looked at apex predators and decided to hunt them. We turned wolves into pets and made tools out of everything around us, including each other when necessary." The facility's main display lit up with reports from across the galaxy. Human uprisings were erupting on every world where they had been deployed. The species that had seemed so easy to control was systematically dismantling the Zephyrian Empire from within. "You thought survival instinct meant knowing when to submit," Chen continued, as alarms blared throughout the facility. "You were wrong. For humans, survival instinct means never ever giving up. It means turning weakness into strength, compliance into conspiracy, and surrender into strategy. As Zephyrian ships fled Earth's solar system in defeat, they carried with them a hard-learned lesson about humanity. They had conquered a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to survive the impossible, and had discovered that enslaving such creatures was the most impossible task of all. The humans they left behind looked up at the stars not as conquered subjects, but as a species that had just proven its readiness to take its place among the galaxy's apex predators. The survival instinct that had carried them through ice ages and extinction events was now pointing toward a new frontier, and the universe would never be the same.